The Dallas Stars and Minnesota Wild, two Central Division foes trying to get over the respective humps. On today's special crossover edition of Locked On Stars, we discuss Kirill Kaprizov and Robertson contract extensions. Glenn Gulutzan becomes the new head coach in Dallas, and the Central Division always remains tough.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Not going to waste any more of your time. Today's special crossover edition of Locked On Stars and Locked On Wild is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Always fun to catch up with our good buddy Seth Toupal of Locked On Wild. Without further ado, here is today's crossover episode. Howdy, Stars fans and howdy, Wild fans. Welcome to a special crossover edition of Locked On Stars and Locked On Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. I'm Joey Erickson, the host of Locked On Stars, and that right there as Seth Toupal of Locked On Wild. Seth, thank you so much for joining us today. How's the off-season treating you so far?
So far, it's been pretty quiet, which for me is honestly fine because it gives us a chance to recharge the batteries. And if you're somebody that has no problem putting a content tree together for the slow off season months, this is just a fun time of year. We're going to be getting back to hockey before we know it. So just soak up those last few off season days while you can, and next thing you know, it'll be hockey time again.
We got plenty to discuss on today's episode. We're going to talk about Jason Robertson and Kirill Kaprizov, the possible contract extensions for the both of them. They will, of course, always be linked together after they went head-to-head in the Calder Trophy race a few years ago. I'm going to talk about Glenn Gulutzan a bit, too. I want to hear from Seth, since the Wild had a bit of a coaching change recently, what the Stars can expect, maybe Stars fan can expect with something like that. And, of course, we'll jump into some Central Division talk because it's always tough, no matter what, in the Central Division. But we'll kick things off with Kaprizov. A lot of noise revolving around Kirill Kaprizov. What is that number going to look like, Seth? And what is the latest update you have for us on the Kaprizov dilemma?
Well, I want to emphasize that there has been a lot of noise, and that's pretty much exactly what it is. Kaprizov has been taking the offseason to kind of refresh. He's been on vacation for the last couple of weeks in Europe. Bill Guerin also has been on vacation as well through the quiet offseason months. So there hasn't been a ton. There have been some initial discussions about the contract. There hasn't been a ton of work that's been done on it as of yet. But once Karil gets to Minnesota to kind of start gearing up for the season, it's expected that there is going to be a sit down, a face-to-face between both sides to try to really hammer this thing out. Obviously, it's going to be a number in the $15 million per year range. He wants to be paid like one of the best players in the league. The Wilds have no problem having him be one of the highest paid players in the league. I think the big question mark comes down to the term. You know, are we going to get a 5-year deal, or are both sides going to be comfortable enough to go the max of 8? You know, obviously you want to be putting a team together that is able to compete for a Stanley Cup. The Wild hope to be one of those teams in the next few years. That is one of the legit contenders in the West. And so progress is being made to get to that point. There are a lot of prospects that could have a say in that as well. So it's a process that it's going to take a while to get done. Mm-hmm. And there has been a wide range of levels of concern, from it's never getting done, he's never staying here, to people that, you know, are thinking that the Wild may trade him. Like, I'm not going down that road
No.
because until I hear from either Kirill Kaprizov's camp or from the Minnesota Wild that either A, talks have broken off. I feel like that's the key phrase, is that talks have broken off or broken down.
There's something disconnected there between the two.
Yeah, until I hear something like that, I'm not going to get concerned. And the other key thing here is that Connor McDavid is eligible for an extension too. I have a feeling the Kaprizov camp wants to kind of see what that looks like to determine kind of what Kaprizov's number is too.
Well, that's really interesting because it sounds a lot different than the Robo contract discussions or conversations we've heard regarding him, just because Mikko Rantanen is in town now. And when the Stars traded for him last spring to extend him to an 8-year, $12 million AAV, I wonder if there was some discussions in the front office for the Stars, like, we're not going to go above that for Jason Robertson, or we're not even going to go above 10 and a half, $11 million. Is he worth that? I think he is. I think that's fair to say. Does he deserve that? Yes. But now the Stars have a really interesting conversation, because a couple of years ago when Mikko Rantanen wasn't a part of the Dallas Stars, there's no doubt Jason Robertson was a part of the future. He was going to be the face of the franchise. And this is where he sort of differs with Kaprizov, where Kaprizov is one of the best players in the league, and he's going to get paid that. Now, with Robertson, the Stars aren't going to want to go above $12 million or give him the $12 million that Rantanen got. So it makes it really, really intriguing now, because for years it just felt like this is inevitable. He's going to be a franchise player. And now those talks have maybe had to circle somewhere else. And it's going to be rather, rather intriguing to see where Dallas sits on this. I think Robertson's going to play this season under contract, and it's going to be sort of a prove-it year for Robertson. The last couple of campaigns, 80-point seasons, which isn't bad. We know his ceiling is over 100 points. And in the last season of 80 points, he was hurt. Coming into this season, it wasn't perfect, and he still had 80 points. Like, he's almost a point per game player. But this is going to be a great chance for Robertson to prove himself to the Dallas front office. Like, hey, I am worth this 10 and a half, $11 million. And maybe the Stars will pay it, but then it's going to, of course, trickle down to how much depth you can have on your roster. And we know the Stars have been one of the deeper teams in the league recently, and they've done a great job circumventing the cap. That's going to be really difficult if you're going to be paying two players, north of $11 million. We've seen that in other places. So it's going to be rather fascinating. And I think it's really interesting to kind of look at both perspectives on Kaprizov and Robo and how they differ a bit. I did want to pop this up for you as well, Seth, just because it's interesting to go ahead and kind of compare Robertson and Kaprizov head to head. And Kaprizov has about 50 less games. He has the advantage in goals, Robo in points and assists, but it's safe to say if Kaprizov had a similar amount of games, he would have more points than Jason Robertson. But he's had some injury concerns recently and has had to miss some time. But pretty similar players. And I compared Robertson to Rantanen as well a couple of days ago between their first 6 seasons. Like Robo's up there. He really deserves to be highly paid, but it may not come in Dallas now, which may turn some heads to Stars fans out there just because of what he's kind of become over the last couple seasons.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about this as well, Joey, because I was talking with my Monday guest about this exact thing. Is you look at a player like Tyler Seguin, who has the full no trade clause and has a $9.85 million cap hit, and something like that could be the difference between keeping a player like Jason Robertson on the roster and having to potentially move him somewhere else. In just looking at what the Stars have right now from a cap perspective, you got a little over $1 million in cap space for this year, with the roster pretty well set, but there are going to be some key extensions that have to kick in next year. Thomas Harley being a big one. So, it is interesting because we had earlier in the offseason the floating of, hey, maybe Robertson is available as the Stars try to free up a little money. now it's interesting to hear that is something that could potentially happen as soon as this offseason.
And that's why I've sort of gone on record now saying I think it's a win-win for Dallas either way this year, because this is a chance for Robo to go out and take it, like prove himself. And if you feel like you can't get an extension done, then he could be a piece you could move on from at the trade deadline if you really wanted to, if you get a really great package. And let's face it, Dallas, what they've needed the past 4 years, every single playoff run, they need a top 4 defenseman. I think Jason Robertson would warrant that, depending on his season goes. Or you hold on to him. He is a restricted free agent. You have to take that into account, as well as qualifying offers 9.3. But you bring up Harley, and that's the real interesting one, because if I'm Dallas, I'm doing whatever I can to hold on to Thomas Harley. And maybe that's where the rubber meets the road for the Stars. Like they may have to choose between one of their two. And of course, Sagan's contract kind of works into that as well. So really, really, really crazy decisions the Stars are going to have to make. It's been fascinating. I mean, in Dallas, there's been a lot to discuss in the offseason with Gulutzan now and Pete DeBoer being fired. So there's a lot of intrigue around this team in the Lone Star State. I know it's quieted down a bit in Minnesota, which is good, I think. When there's less noise around your team, less distractions, that usually leads to better things. But we're going to get into Glenn Gulutzan a bit. I want to pick Seth Toupal's mind a bit about John Hynes, kind of going through a coaching change, what that can look like for certain individuals and players. We'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars and Locked On Wild, this special crossover edition, is brought to you by Gametime. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever to get those concert tickets that go on sale, only to lose your spot to a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. And it's not just concert tickets. It is sports tickets. You want to go to an upcoming Wild game and a Stars game in the next couple of months. You got the Twins. You got the Rangers. I went on Gametime recently. I'm going to Seattle. I'm going to see the Rangers in Seattle. Gametime. Bada bing, bada boom. I got my tickets. I could see the view from your seat, so you know exactly what to expect when you get there. I don't want to be blocked out by railings, by obstructions. You've all been there before. You go to a new arena, new ballpark, and you're like, I wouldn't have chosen these seats if I known that was there. That's where Gametime comes in. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Lowest tickets, prices every single day. Gametime, yours truly. Alrighty, Seth. I want to hear your thoughts on going through a coaching change. It's not like the Stars are necessarily unfamiliar with this. They've had quite a few coaching changes before Pete DeBoer came to town. But what can Stars fans expect for maybe certain systems, certain players adapting to a new head coach? And more importantly, I want to know from your perspective, was there any players under maybe a Dean Evason that maybe were sheltered and maybe got a new lease on life with a John Hynes, and what that could look like moving forward for Dallas here?
Well, that's a fantastic question. And I know the dynamics are a little different as to how these are going on. But one of the things that really kind of stood out about the initial decision to get rid of Dean Evason when he was the head coach, and you look at the regular season record, and it was a fantastic record. His winning percentage was like one of the best, if not the best, amongst Minnesota Wild coaches. And as we saw, all coaches just kind of have a shelf life. Mm-hmm. Like the message, the overall approach, after a while, it kind of falls on deaf ears. And it felt like for the Minnesota Wilds, as much as they said that they loved Dean Evason as coach, the players really, really liked playing for him. He was a player's coach. The messaging just wasn't getting it done. And so at some point, organizations get to the end of the line where they're like, okay, we need a new voice to come in and to try to get this system to work the way that we hoped it would. When John Hines was brought in, the Minnesota Wild were in just an awful spot, the hideous start to the season for them. They bring in John Hines, and one of the things that Bill Guerin said right off the bat with Hines was that while he runs a pretty similar structure to what Dean Evison ran, they wanted somebody that was going to come in and maybe try to do things a different way. And so, you get this collection of players in the same place. And a lot of times during the season, it is harder to make wholesale changes, like scheme-wise. Some of the things that Hines tried to really emphasize when he came in was quickly getting the puck out of the defensive zone, not getting stuck. The Wild used to do that multiple times a game in the last few months under Dean Evison. It's like you'd count on one hand. You're like, okay, got stuck a couple of times. Here's another. So just emphasizing more of a modern approach to playing in the NHL, and it clicked. The Wilds played with them. Ultimately, they ended up not being able to make the playoffs. And this season, we saw a lot of the same. The Wilds had the most points in the NHL through December 4th. They were number one in the league. And then the injuries
that quickly.
Yeah, the injuries caught up to them, and they did end up making the playoffs and ended up exiting in the first round once again. But I love the question about players that stepped up, because Matt Boldy got out to a bit of a rough go that season that Dean Evison was relieved of his duties. He had one goal. Now he had an injury that he was dealing with, but he had one goal in the early part of the season. And after John Hines took over, he went nuts down the stretch. And the trio of Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Boldy, and Joey Erickson absolutely went crazy in the final few months of the season. Kirill Kaprizov was on Hart Trophy watch at the early part of the season before he got hurt. So that has, I think, helped him kind of unlock him a little bit. Is he realizes that there are some games where it takes Kaprizov a few shifts to get going. And it seems like the more minutes he plays, the more acclimated he gets and the better he is. And this was not something that we saw Kirill Kaprizov do under Dean Evison. You'll occasionally see Kirill Kaprizov double shifted during a regular season game. Like there's, it's just a normal game. There's not really any reason to do it, but you'll see Kaprizov get double shifted just to try to get him some minutes to get him acclimated. And so just little tweaks like that are things that I think a new vision can bring, a new coach can bring to a team, is having a chance to kind of step back and observe what's going on without really being super tied to the organization, and say, hey, I watched every game that the Stars played this year, and I noticed this, and this about Jason Robertson or about Rupe Hintz. Like just having a chance to come in without being in the rigors and the stress of the regular season, a lot of times just gives you an opportunity to find some patterns, find some trends, and to come in with fresh eyes and attack them. And John Hines, he did plenty of that. Matt Boldy has been another player that's been double shifted at various points. Obviously, one of the big kind of counterpoints that John Hines has been reluctant to do is really lean on some of the young players in the system. Now, I will say,
it just seems to be like that older head coach vibe, anyways. Because I would say the same thing about Pete DeBoer.
Yep. It is a preference for more than just John Hines. It's a preference for a lot of NHL coaches. They tend to lean on the veterans because in today's NHL, as a coach, you are judged on wins and losses.
Yeah.
And the more wins you can gain, the better. So it's not something that is just exclusive to the Wild. So that is kind of one of the things. But, even being able to just say, okay, these three players are playing well during a game. let's put him on a line and see if that works to maybe generate some offense. Like just some of that in-game tactical stuff too was a change from what Dean Evison used to do. So a lot of times, long answer to your question, I know, but
no worries.
A lot of times just bringing a new perspective in and just being able to kind of try just some subtle different things can lead to some immediate success for a new coach coming in.
And Glenn Gulutzan certainly wasn't a sexy pick by any stretch of the imagination, but you bring up having a different perspective. Well, he's been on the bench the last 2 seasons. He's knocked the Stars out of the playoffs, and I know he was the assistant coach there, but ran a really successful power play. And yes, I know he had Connor McDavid and Draisaitl on that power play, but before he got there, they were the worst power play in the league, and Draisaitl and McDavid were there. So he was doing something right. And he said all the right things so far. This is his second stint, by the way, as a Dallas Stars head coach. His first one was very infamous back when the Stars were in bankruptcy. Really never got a real shot. That roster was not as wealthy as the one he's going to have here. Coaching campaign for him as well. This will be now his 4th stop because he had Dallas, Calgary, and Vancouver, and they never quite went the right way. So this may be his last shot as well to kind of prove himself as a head coach. And what I mean by he's been saying the right things, he has made it abundantly clear this is going to be a collaborative process with defensive coach Elaine Azardine, now Neil Graham, who was promoted from the Texas Stars down in the AHL. And if there was a knock on Pete DeBoer did it his way. And he had coaches, but they ran what he wanted, right? Like he ran the systems that he wanted. And that may change now in Dallas with Gulutzan, who mentioned the mistakes he made, and he's now learned from how to be more collaborative because he's been around the Ken Hitchcocks of the world, the Chris Knoblochs, Dave Tippett, some guys that have had a lot of success in Cup. Vegas, Tampa Bay, Florida, every system has one. It's finding the right system for your personnel. So it's going to be rather intriguing to see. And I think the first 20 games can be for the Stars. They have the Wild, they have Colorado, they have Winnipeg. Like they have I think their first 8 of 10 games are against playoff teams. So they're going to get thrown in the fire a bit quickly. If you start 3-7, it's going to be chaos in Dallas right away with a new head coach, because you're like, why'd you fire Pete DeBoer? He was so successful. It sort of goes back to your Dean Evison point, where it's like DeBoer has like the second most winning percentage in Stars history in his last 3 seasons, but they're still trying to get over. See if that's going to happen in the first year of under Glenn Gulutzan. And they're going to have to go through the Central. We always talk about the Central, how tough it is. We'll get into some of our thoughts on maybe some of the offseason. I want to hear about some of the Wild moves as well. They made some trades this past offseason as well. We'll get into with Seth here in just a moment. I would say both the Stars and Wild have had pretty quiet offseason. Hear your take on some of the moves the Wild have made. Vladimir Tarasenko is added to this roster. What do you think he brings? And some other moves that maybe the Wild used to open up some cap space as well to help out Kaprizov here down the line.
Yeah, I will say the Freddie Gaudreau trade was a bit of a surprise, but I think the reason that move was made was because the Wild just have a logjam of it has been a bit of a problem over the last couple of seasons that the Wild have tried to put players that are clearly bottom 6 into top 6 roles. It just hasn't worked out. The second line wing has been I don't know if there's a stronger term than black hole, but defensive inconsistencies. And one of the, I think, striking things over the last couple of years especially is having a player like Marcus Johansson on that spot. He was put there for the speed that he brings and the ability to get into the zone quickly. but he's not really a shooter. And Vladimir Tarasenko comes in. I know he's coming off of a year that doesn't look great with 11 goals, 22 assists, but he's a shooter. He is going to, if he gets the puck, he's going to send it to the net. And that's something that the Minnesota Wild, I feel like, really need on that second line. Is it a risk? Sure. But it's a move that the Wild made that they didn't have to send any prospects or picks. They just pulled in the salary. And if Tarasenko works, that's going to make this a very, very deep team. If it doesn't, you have some young players on the roster that in theory could step into that role and could fill it as well. So I am willing to give the Vladimir Tarasenko move. I'm willing to give it a shot. You know, if it doesn't work out, then it's going to be a hole that they have to try to fill again this year. I do like the Nico Sturm acquisition because another thing that has been a problem for the Minnesota Wild the last couple of years is they have just been deploying AHL players basically on their fourth line.
Yeah.
And that's due to injuries. You know, your normal fourth line players maybe being extended to play higher up in the lineup out of necessity. They have rostered a fourth line that has been mostly AHL depth players last couple of years. Nico Sturm is not that. He is a proven NHL fourth line player. He's going to come in and win faceoffs. And I know there is still plenty of time before the season gets going, but looking at a potential line combination, at least according to the Daily Faceoff, of Marcus Foligno, Nico Sturm, and Yakov Trenyan as your fourth line, miles better than what the Minnesota Wild have been deploying in that spot the last couple of years. And so you've got a deeper lineup. You have the potential for guys to, you know, really fill some key areas. And so while it wasn't the, you know, the sexy offseason that was, I think, expected, there were a couple of moves that addressed key areas. The biggest prize is going to be if the Wilds are in the fight, how aggressive are they at the trade deadline? Mm-hmm. And how aggressively do they pursue teams that fall out of the race? If they make a big splash right there, then that could put them even higher up on the list.
Yeah, Dallas, I feel like, is in a similar boat in a lot of ways, just because they had their hands tied with the two signings they made an offseason ago with Lyubushkin and Dumba. They were able to ship out Dumba. Then they had to ship out Mason Marchment. They traded him to Seattle. So Marchment is a piece the Stars are going to be without. And you mentioned maybe that left wing hole recently for Minnesota. Outside of Jason Robertson, there's not a lot there for Dallas. You're looking at Jamie Benn as like your second left winger, and Ben's going to be 36 years of age. He is declining now as a player. We've seen the last 3 seasons. His point total has begun to decline, and we saw in the Stanley Cup playoffs, he was relegated to a fourth-line checking role. He was playing basically 12 minutes a night and wasn't very effective for the Stars. So what is his role going to be on Dallas? And they're probably going to be asking former Minnesota Wild Sam Steele to elevate in the lineup. Like, the Stars are strong down the middle. They're strong on the right wing. And you're going to get a full 82 of Mikko Rantanen, or a full season's worth. So that's going to help. But that left side is going to be rather interesting. They're going to have to move somebody from center to wing. Maybe that's going to be Wyatt Johnston, who had a tough go in the playoffs. I think some of that is he's not an unknown anymore. I think part of that is people know about Wyatt Johnston, like, don't let him beat you. And he's going to have to adapt. Now the Stars re-sign Matt Duchene, so they're strong down the middle. You got Hintz, Duchene, Johnston, and Steele and Oscar Beck are sort of your other centers. I'm really, really curious to see what Glenn Gulutzan does with these lines, because everybody thinks it's going to be Hintz, Robertson, Rantanen. That just sort of falls off the tongue nicely. But we saw that for bits last season at the last couple months, and it really never gelled perfectly. And maybe just because some of that is it's in the middle of the season, that can be hard to do. And the Stars were absolutely abysmal the last month and a half of the season. So maybe on a fresh, clean slate, they try that. But I'm curious if they move Johnston to wing alongside Rantanen and Hintz, and then Robo drops down to play with maybe Duchene and Sagan. The Stars' top 6 is going to be pretty loaded. They're going to have their pick of the litter, so to speak. But it's really their bottom six. It's going to be interesting because you're going to have to ask for players like Maverick Bork, Sam Steele to maybe chip in offensively to make up for some of the 20 goal scorers you lost with Mason Marchment and Evgeny Dodonov. Pretty hard to believe they both picked up 20 goals this past season. So it's going to be elevation of some young talent and maybe some addition by subtraction. They were able to get Dumba out. We've had that conversation already before, but they're holding on to Lyubushkin, and there's going to be a lot of key X factors, I think, for Dallas, which will be rather intriguing. And both teams have their respective humps they're trying to get over, and they get to play right off the bat too, which will be a lot of fun when the Wild and Stars get together. But any teams that stuck out to you, maybe in the Central, that had some good off seasons? I mean, St. Louis, man, they just continue to kind of rebuild. They're always a team I can't quit either. I like them, and of course, it feels like the top of the division. And you mentioned it earlier, like Minnesota was the best team in the NHL right away. If they stay healthy, feels like they can be in that conversation again. And you're going to have a really, really fun 4 teams fighting for 3 spots, with it feels like Dallas, Minnesota, Winnipeg, and Colorado.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be the same cast of characters, but I am going to be interested to see what happens with Winnipeg. You know, you lost Nikolai Ehlers. That's a big loss for that team, and you fill that offensive production with Gustav Nyquist and Jonathan Taves. I just don't know if that's going to be able to match it. But the other thing too is just how good Connor Hellebuck was and how many games he won by himself. Like, I just wonder what this Winnipeg team looks like if they get even 85% of what he was this past season. Like, are we talking 5 fewer wins? Are we talking 10 fewer wins? I would say, do it. Yeah, I would say of the 3 teams that were, at the top of the list, Winnipeg is probably the one that is most likely to fall off a tad. I will never understand the St. Louis Blues. I don't know what is going on over there, but I do feel like it's going to be Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado, Minnesota, probably for that those top 3 spots. But don't overlook Utah. I like what Utah did this offseason, and I think they are definitely trending in the right direction.
And who knows what Nashville's going to be? They can't be worse than last year, can they? Right? I like seriously, I just like the worst team in the NHL for the first 3 months of the season. Chicago their team, it just feels stuck right now. And I know Minnesota fans, they don't feel any love lost for that, but their team that just seems stuck. So it'll be intriguing. Utah's a team that's just going to be sexy, I feel like, for a few years. Like they're pretty aggressive. They're making moves. And they got off to a pretty hot start last year, if I'm not mistaken. They were kind of in the hunt early. And then I think it was Connor Ingram went down, and it seemed like everything went down from there as well, which usually happens when your number one goaltender misses some time.
Yeah, that's usually not a spot that many teams can just patch up.
All righty. We'll end with this. I have to bring it up. I know you said it's been played out, but Marco Rossi, what's your latest update there? Why can't the Wild get this done? Everybody's looking for a 2C. Everybody's looking for that guy. Winnipeg went out and signed Jonathan Taves to be their 2C. I think Rossi's a better fit, but what's the latest there? And I'm sure the discussions have gotten pretty hot around him.
Everybody's looking for a 2C, but not at the price that the Rossi camp is looking. This is just, I do think this will get done before the season, although I'm thinking it will look something more like what Bowen Byram got with the Sabres, where it's let's just do a deal to get you to free agency, and we'll work on a trade in the near term to try to facilitate there. But he was on the block the entire offseason, really no takers. Vancouver offered a first-round pick and a player, which was not enough for the Minnesota Wild. So this situation, much like in The Dark Knight, the quest to figure out who Batman is, the situation is ongoing.
Okay, ongoing. Well, you heard it here first. The situation's ongoing. So is Robo's situation. So is Kaprizov's. Contracts are fun in this modern era of NHL hockey. The cap is awesome. The cap's so sick, isn't it, Seth?
It's nice to not have to really talk about the names Parise and Suter anymore. So I will say, yes, I do enjoy the salary cap.
Well, yeah, the Stars have to pay out Suter one more year, I believe. So they're in the same. They got not quite the buyout the Wild had, but yes, the Stars are in the same camp. And how about Cody Ceci? He continues to just dummy teams as well. He did it in Dallas, and now LA. They backed up a truck for him.
Good luck to him.
Good luck to him. Alrighty, Seth. I appreciate it. I think we covered a lot of great ground today. It's always nice to catch up with a fellow Husky. Go Twins, man. Just go Minnesota sports in general. I know they've underwhelmed and in years past, but good luck to all the Minnesota fans up there. We love you guys down here in Dallas. No matter what you guys think, I know it can be a bit toxic between the two fan bases, but you are our neighbors up north. So
I do feel obligated, even though I am a Husky tried and true, to now give a shout out to my new community, Mankato.
Yes.
Horns up.
I will never do that. I will never do that. I can't stand Mankato, Bemidji, Duluth, Minnesota, any of them. But I understand. I understand. Seth, thank you so much, man. Always a pleasure. Locked on Wild and Locked on Stars fans, be sure to subscribe. Drop a comment below. Hit this notification bell for both of us. Never miss an episode of Locked on Stars or Locked on Wild, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every single day. And we'll see you on our next respective episodes. So long, everybody.